So now we will move to have speakers' presentations, starting with Mr. Tony Roller, Vice President at Vermont, and we will move to Claudia Lin, Senior Vice President at Holloway International, and Kevin Bradley at Vice President at Holloway International, and finally, last but not least, Bill Imada, IW Group Chairman. Shirley? Tony?
Well, good morning, everybody. I hope everybody's doing well. It's good seeing all of you wonderful, lovely faces. And it is a really honor to be on this call, on this conversation with Claudia, with the incredible Kevin Bradley, who is a cohort in crime. We have done some real revolutionary work together. Don't get scared, y'all. I'm using revolution in a very loose way. And then Billy Imada, who inspires me each and every day, especially on those days when I think I can't do anymore. And I think about Bill and everything that he's doing, and I say, like, dang, well, I gotta keep going, because if Bill Imada is in the house and can do it, so can I. So thank you all very, very much. As Dr. Sun indicated, my name is Tony Waller. I am Vice President, Constituent Relations and Racial Equity at Walmart. I've been at Walmart for 16 years, doing all kinds of things. And so I will end with that on what it is that I do. I thought I'd talk a little bit with you all. I'm going to take it a whole different way. Probably Dr. Chin won't have a heart attack after I do this. But for me, this is incredibly important. I believe that we should have a very clear understanding that there's a difference between who we are and what we do. Oftentimes we confuse what we do with who we are. And so I think it's very difficult to be able to be clear on what it is that we do without fully understanding who we are. So let me just start with that, okay? And so I want to talk to you a little bit about who I am. And what I'm getting ready to do, I'm going to show this little bit of a PowerPoint. Nothing much, trust me. Trust me, if I'm doing it, it ain't nothing much. But it's a PowerPoint. And what I want you all to do, I'm going to be on every slide for about 7 seconds or so. And I just want you all just to read through the slides. And then we will take it from there. Will it? Can we handle it?
Yes.
Now let's hope I know what the heck I'm doing. Because typically when it comes to technology and Tony Waller, we don't do real good. So let's see if I get this thing right. Oh my goodness, maybe I will. Oh my goodness, I'm doing it. I'm so proud of myself. Y'all for real, y'all have no idea. Okay, so let's get this thing rolling if I can do this right. And let's just start. Let me get it. Is this the right one? Oops, no. Hold tight, y'all. Hold tight.
Everybody, help them out here, right at the top.
All right, here we go. 7 seconds per slide. Ready?
Takes a lot of shooting. Takes a lot of shooting.
All right, so that kind of tells you a little bit about who I am. Well, thank you for that. That's incredibly kind. You know, again, I'm just a human trying to make it, so you give me more credit than I definitely deserve. I know I just have a few minutes, and I probably should be talking about more about my work, and we can get into that. But I want to share with you some of the lessons that I learned. I call this talk Lessons from the River. And I want to come to you with a little bit of a story. This is something that has completely been something that has been transformative in my life, and I'm hoping that that you as young people may consider grasping some of this and applying it to your own life in a way that I think could really make a real difference and a transformative change for you. So I'm going to start quickly with a story. And it's a story about my mother. My mother, unfortunately, passed away in 2011, Barbara Jean Motley-Wong. And Barbara Jean was one of the most brilliant women I have ever met in my life. In fact, one of the most brilliant people I had met in my life. And she and I used to have a conversation every Sunday night. 7:30 p.m. Central Time, y'all. Not 7:28, not 7:34, 7:30 p.m. Central Time. And we would talk about what's going on in the world and what's happening in my life and what she's doing and all that kind of good stuff. And at the end of the conversation, she would ask a question. She would say, "Baby?" I said, "Yes, ma'am." She said, "Are you born with the river?" And I said, "Yes, ma'am, I'm born with the river." Now, can I be real with y'all? I had no idea what she was talking about. All I know is that I've been on the phone for an hour and a half. It was 9:30. I had to get to work the next day. I was like flowing because I had to get off that phone. And I knew very, very well that if I didn't say that, we would still be on the phone even longer. So I said, "Yeah, Mom, I'm flowing." It wasn't until I had to make a real pivotal decision. It was a decision whether or not to come to Walmart. So you see, the person, I have a lady by the name of Esther Silver Parker, and Bill Imada knows her very, very well. Esther Silver Parker, who was at the time Senior Vice President of Corporate Affairs at Walmart, gave me a call and said, "Tony, I got this job and you're the one I want. What do I got to do?" Now, you know, don't like hearing that kind of stuff, right? But not Tony what. I was like, Miss Esther, that's really nice of you, but no, thank you. I come to the Walmart. So she said, "You know, come see me." So I came to see her and I went through the whole process. But in my mind, I had already made a decision that I wasn't going to go to the job. And so I get back to Bloomington, Illinois, at the time I was working for State Farm, and I was going through a lot at that, there was a lot of things that were happening that I was not associating with this decision. I was making crazy mistakes. I was not eating well. I couldn't sleep, and I couldn't understand what was going on. So that Sunday night, I'm on the phone with my mom. So what's going on? I said, well, nothing much. Other than, it's really strange, Mother. I can't, I'm not eating well. I'm not sleeping well. I don't know what's going on. I can't understand it. She says, well, anything different and interesting happened? I said, no, not really. Everything is still the same. Oh, I did get a job offer. And she said, a job offer? I said, yeah, Walmart called me and they want me to come work for them. But I was like, no, I don't want the job. And so she asked me why. And I said, well, Mom, Walmart, they don't do right. They don't act right. And I don't feel like, I just don't feel like going to them. I like where I am. My life is good. I'm not going anywhere. Well, how do you know they don't do right, Tony? Well, I read the newspapers. I see the news. Like, you don't see that? And so her response was, oh, so I see. You believe everything that you read in newspapers and hear on television because they're always right. You never have heard them make a mistake or tell some inaccuracies, have you? At that point, of course, because I'm very good at always dissecting news and talking about what's not correct and what's not quite right and all that kind of good stuff. And she already had heard it all from me. So she threw it all back in my face. And I said, okay, so I'm getting a little mad right now. Then she goes, okay, well, let's just say for the sake of argument that whatever they said, let's just say for the sake of argument that everything you've read and seen is true. So they called you for this job, right? Yes, ma'am. You didn't ask for this job. No, ma'am. So did you ever consider that maybe, just maybe, they fully understand that they're not getting it right, but they know you know how to get it right, so they're asking for your help to get it right? You ever think about that? And then she says, well, you're grown, you can do whatever you want. But I'll tell you this. If you decide not to take this job, I don't ever want to hear you say one bad thing about Walmart because you had an opportunity to help them out and you chose not to. Now, y'all, it was hot there. So she goes at that point, my mother says, well, I know you're mad at me right now, so I'm going to let you go. But before I let you go, baby, are you flowing with the river? And I said, yes, ma'am, I'm flowing with the river. And that day she said to me, this is what changed my life forever. She said, baby, you have to flow with the river because the river knows exactly where it's going. And my mother was a very, very spiritual woman. And she said to me, when you were born, the good Lord took you in the palm of his hand. And he went to the river. And first, before he got to the river, he gave you two gifts. So here's lesson one for the river. He gave you a name. That's the essence of who you are. So you must understand who it is that you are. First and foremost. And then he gave you an assignment. An assignment that only you can accomplish. That's what makes each and every one of us special. Each and every one of you in this room right here, has an assignment that only you can do. Nobody else can do your thing. Nobody. So after he gave you these assignments, she said, he walked over to the river and he looked at the river and the river looked back and responded, yes, Lord. And the good Lord took you and placed you on that river. And the river has been taking you exactly where it is that you're supposed to go. Now, don't get it twisted, she said. Do not get it twisted. Don't go in, you don't tell the river what to do because the river's always known what it's supposed to do. And always remember this, the river only made one promise to you. And the promise wasn't that you won't get wet. The promise wasn't that you won't get thrown out this boat every once in a while. Promise wasn't you won't hit a rock. The promise wasn't that the speed was going to be at the speed that you are comfortable with. Never promised you that at all. It only promised you was going to get you where you're supposed to get. In my indignant self, I said to my mom, well, if that's the case, well, it don't matter what I do. Because what's going to happen is going to happen. And so she said, that's where you're getting it wrong again, baby, because the power is in not what happens or what does not happen. The power is in what you decide to do with what happens. That is the power that we all own. And so that made my choice what it is, and I turned around and came to Walmart, and I've been here 16 years, and it's been the best thing that I've ever done. The best thing I've ever done is just to trust that journey. So in all of this, because I know I'm over time, and I'm going to get out of here, I want y'all to take these lessons with you. Understand who it is that you are. First and foremost, ask the question, who are you? Not what you do, but who are you? Can you sum that up in 8 words or less? And can you just keep track of that in each and every day? 2, understand your assignment. You must seek out your assignment. You always know what your assignment is. But are you able to verbalize it? Again, can you say it in 8 words or less? 3, power is not in what you do or do not do. Power is in what you decide to do with whatever happens. And last but not least, the plan for you is good and the plan for you is perfect. Now that does not mean, again, because again, the river never made any promises to you, but giving you where you're supposed to go. The question is, will you trust the plan and trust the river? Will you exercise your assignment? Because here's the crazy thing about this. The plan is so good and so perfect, it doesn't need you. The plan will execute itself to perfection with or without you. But if you trust the plan and you play your role, your reward will come. And I am a witness of this. I've seen it happen over and over and over and over again. And with that, I will turn it back over to Dr. Shin because I've talked too long. And happy to entertain any questions that you might have when the time comes.
Thank you, Tony. Claudia?
Hi, everyone. Thank you, Tony. That was amazing. That is a wonderful wisdom. I didn't know that I was following a river. So everyone really has his own path. My story I would like to share with you is a very odd story. The title, you may see that Dr. Shin would like me to share how I rise to the top. But to me, I'm not there yet. But I feel that every step of the way caused me to be where I am. So I would love to share a little bit about myself and then share with you a little bit about the data about women in the workforce. And then I can share with you some of the lessons learned for me, and hopefully that would be useful for your journey as well. So I would like to just share the screen. Well, let me see. One more. And that's it. Can you see the screen? Good. So my name is Claudia Lin, and I have to say my journey at work is not a typical thing. I was born in, here, let me see. Okay, so I was born in and raised in a little girl in Kaohsiung, Taiwan. It's a southern part of Taiwan. It's an island between Japan and Philippines. I was the oldest of 3. My mother was the oldest of 7. My father is the 9th of 10 children. And, I didn't have a very rich, background, but my mom was a very passive entrepreneur. She became an entrepreneur because my father went to Japan and studied in a wonderful university. Mr. Bill would know Waseda University. And my mom was a homemaker. And then when they were traveling, my mom was actually cleaning houses in Japan when my father studied in Japan. And then decided maybe my father said, why don't you start making your own little business? So my mom actually started the business bringing luggages of clothes to sell in Taiwan. There you go, starting a journey of becoming an entrepreneur. She had a little boutique, and so I was able to dress nicely as I was growing up with the things that we imported from Japan. Here's a little bit about who I am. I think when you think about the things that you are, a lot of words come to mind. I am a woman. I believe in growth, self-development. I'm part of a community. I value family. I was a homemaker. I'm a single mom now. Proud mother of 3 sons, 27, 14, and 13. And I'm a daughter and friends. And a lot of things I do value in my life shape who I am. Now, I wasn't working all my career. I was actually, my first marriage was arranged. I was married at 19. I had 9 years of marriage. Then I decided, okay, that was a time when I married into a family who didn't believe women should be working outside of the home. And I believe I wanted to have my own voice. And unfortunately, even though I came to America in 1991, I still have that culture with me for a long, long time. So in the late 90s, I decided I didn't want to be who I was not, and I ventured out and became independent. Then I became married again. I'm being very vulnerable here, to a very successful lawyer. And my job became the family. I was a homemaker for a long time, from, I say, 2004 to 2014. I had 2 more children. I raised the kids. I was supporting my, at the time, husband's law practice. So I was doing everything that, a homemaker was doing. And then I was supporting his business. Even though I didn't ever have a paycheck, I was doing a lot of events. I was networking with the community. I was contributing my time. At the time, I had already gotten my MBA from night school at USC. So this is where I feel that where I am also is believing in that, investing in myself. So even though I was at home, I believe in my Christian value of being a supporter. I'm a follower of Christ, and I feel that that's who I am. So I believe in that. So God gave me 3 sons. It's an amazing blessing. And I supported my husband's career. And that was who I am. But God had other plan for me. In 2014, my children they were in kindergarten. So my ex-husband said, you know what? I have a client. They may need someone like you. You're doing great for my business, developing Asia clients. Why don't you do this for them? And so I joined an insurance broker called Optum, and they needed someone like me to be able to take care of a very Asian client. So I started that, and lo and behold, it's almost 10 years in the career. And I feel like, maybe some of the women would have, my sister, for example, was never married. She had a long time career. She just retired. She's risen to the top of CFO of one of the biggest fashion company and was in charge of a P&L of $8 billion. And she had her own journey. It's a different journey than mine. But I don't have any regrets because where I am is what the river says I should be following. But I do want to point out some stats. So here's some of the stats where most of the Americans, like based on the recent research that's released by Pew Research Center, March 1st this year. If you look at the gender pay gap, it has very much closed in the recent years. So 3 decades ago, when I started working first time, the gender gap was for men making 100%, women would make 80% of what men make. But now, if you look at everybody over age 16, wage gap is 82% to 100. But good news is, for all you in the room, young people, workers in age 25 to 34, you're making 92% of 100%, still not 100%. But we can look at some of the reasons why. In the US, what people believe, this is a self-survey, percentage of adults who think that this is the reason why women are making less. On average, men feel that it's because they are treated differently than the men in the workplace. Minor reason, they tend to have different choices about balancing work and family, or they tend to work in jobs that pay less. You may not agree. But 2/3 of U.S. working mother feels also that among the employee working adults, percentage that they feel that they have more responsibility focusing at home, 35% feel so in men, and women feel 48% responsible at home. And in terms of supporting their family financially, 45, 47, the difference is not really that big. And in terms of needing to feel successful in their job or career, men definitely have a slight, more emphasis, or as they self-reported this way. Here's a stat about how among the U.S. adults, percentage of people say that they are currently, or would like to be, or would not like to be the top boss at their work. Of all the employed adults, 25% of men are currently the top boss. 33%, so they would, 33% say they would like to be the top boss. 41% say they would like to be the top boss. Men definitely on the, you can see still 37% would not like to be the top boss. 46% of women say they don't want to be the top boss. And in terms of, this is where I think a little bit more gap is, fathers and mothers. Fathers, 27% don't say they don't want to be top boss, but 42% of mothers feel so. Here's where we feel the wage gap between men and women. Now we are having a growing, wives being a sole financial provider, primary earner, and the egalitarian is where men and women are sharing equal, earnings in the family. So you can definitely see a trend where women are taking on more responsibility or earning more. Here's an interesting one because I feel that this is, still today, and especially in the last couple of years, people have reported that even if you're a big earner, and this is a lot of charts, so I'll explain it in more of a verbal way. Left side is husband as a primary earner in the marriage. You can see that they spend a lot of time at paid work, the darker green one. And then, they are spending quite a nice time, men and women the same, but they're doing less caregiving or housework, for 1.4% versus women. 7.3%. The middle part is where wife is the primary earner. You can see that woman is still doing more caregiving and housework at the far right of this chart. And then in egalitarian marriages, husband and wife both spend about the same, time. Well, men still spend more time at paid work and leisure than caregiving and housework. So this is kind of where we are at. Here is by ethnicity and the age. So I'm going to share with you that actually the standout is that in the black ethnicity, women tend to be more equal earners or a primary earner. 26% of black ethnicity, wives tend to be primary or sole earner. In terms of age gap, I don't see a lot of difference from young people to older. Older actually says 55 to 64, about 20%, which is surprising to me. A wife is a main earner. And I think there's one more thing about being educated in terms of, I see your stat in the university. There's actually more women in the campus, if I'm right, that is getting educated. So I think trajectory of difference in primary role of earning is still, on the rise. However, recently we have, because of pandemic, witnessed a great breakup. What it means is that we as women are demanding more from work. Not every employer are flexible or believe in giving women a choice, given that we are taking care of family, a little bit more time at home. So we are demanding more flexibility and more people are leaving jobs that are not giving them what they want. So I don't think there's any, in the whole history of time, more woman-friendly environment. I know we always can grow better, but to me, this is the time we want to be in any time in history, because we feel now much more empowered to make a difference, and we have choices. And we have choices to go to the company that supports you and give you those remote working, give you maybe the childcare support, emotional, support from the colleagues. Many companies have, like how we have a women's group, we have leaders, we can, and I want to make a acclamation, claim that not all the advocates for women are women. So my biggest advocate are sitting in this room, Mr. Kevin Bradley and Bill Imada. And I just heard your story, Tony. I'm sure you're the biggest advocate for women. I think women have a misunderstanding that you can only seek out help from women, which is not true. In my career, I definitely have had mentors who are wonderful people from all ethnicity. And this is where I think that the support should come from. You need to seek out people who are different than you, because, I think we have a lot of still a long way to go in terms of understanding, not just in different race, but also in different age. I think when people talk about diversity, they talk about ethnicity, race.
Technology.
So if you have the choices and you make that choice, nobody should be telling you that's wrong or it's a lesser choice, because I've done that. And yes, maybe my career would have been, I could have probably been a CEO or something somewhere, but I'm perfectly happy having raised 3 wonderful boys, and I believe that they needed me at the time. So I don't think you should put a label on any sort of choice and career path. And that is a lesson I've learned for a long time, because women carry more guilt about everything, about not being a good enough mom, good enough worker, good enough colleague, good enough friend. We are too guilty for everything. We just need to let it go. It's like, hey, this is who I am. I love who I am. It's okay. And people who are going to judge you, they're not your friend. So why give them any room to influence your life? Yeah. Another thing is that companies are having a pipeline problem in the C-suite. And I don't think that's really a problem. I just think that we are making progress. And for every 100 men, there may be 86% who feel that from the entry level they are promoting, and then colored women, even a little bit more less in terms of promotion goes. That is somewhere I think we do need to do better as companies, becoming more aware. And then, I did have a gap in my career, and I came back and I was able to find a company that really, see me. Last month, I was just so fortunate because of people like Kevin and Bill. I was invited to White House, and I was able to meet the president. I was among business leaders from a small business owner. And I was in shock, like, why me? I didn't do anything to deserve this. But there are opportunities when you connect yourself with people who are just great people. And you never know what's going to fall in your lap. So that was an amazing experience, and if I can do it, you can do it. And so, here we go back and say, hey, every director level who gets promoted to the next level, 2 directors of the same level are leading the company. So that is an issue because, yes, we are devoted to family, but we need to stay and kind of being able to create that path for other people and see that example as viable. I think what Tony said was correct, is that if you don't like the company's culture and you think that they're not doing something right, then what are you doing about it? Very similar to what President Kennedy said, don't ask what the country can do for you, ask what you can do for the country. I would say that to every level, in the company level, in your family, in your relationship. I think that principle applies everywhere. Here's another chart. I'm a staff person, so bear with me. Last chart. Here's difference in white men, men of color, white women, women of color. All these different levels from the C-suite to the entry level. So the left side show you it's relatively even. 33% at the entry level are white men, and men of color is 19. White women is 29%. Women is less. And then it narrows down even more and more, towards the right. Unfortunately, white men is still 61% of C-suite. And it could be the choices. It could be a certain, people who look like me kind of thing, where they are just in that core group. And that's why it's even more important to hang out with people who are not like you, because I feel that if we say, hey, people should change things for me, but we're not doing anything different, then it's on you, right? So if I go into a room, and I often do, go into a room and it's all white men, or a few people who, and maybe nobody, or maybe one more person like me, and it makes me a little bit uncomfortable. But I have to say, even last night, I said, you know what? That's okay. There's a question out there, and I have an answer. And instead of feeling like an imposter, say, well, I shouldn't be here, or my answer may not be helpful, just speak up. Because if you believe that could be helpful, how would other people know if you don't speak up? So I think that's, look at the link, and this is data from me, and there's a lot of ways, and seek out coaches that could help you in many different ways. So I'm gonna keep at this last one, is that how do I change a corporate culture? Once maybe you are in the workforce, maybe you're going to be in the workforce. I say that I think that clear communication is important, but not in a way that it makes people feel like you're just complaining, you're just playing victim. That's not helpful to anyone. It doesn't help your brand. So when you communicate, think about how you want to help. You want to have this feedback be constructive, and think on the other side, how does that make them feel? And you seek out sponsors and mentors on different levels. I mean, I don't deserve it, but I can text my CEO of the company if I have a real issue. He is there. Even if he never told me, hey, bother me any time of the day, I know in the back of my mind, if I have some voice that hasn't been told, I know Kevin's there for me. I have a lot of wonderful friends. I seek out and build relationship. And that's what you need to do in a corporate culture. So invest in connecting with people, show up and contribute. Don't shy away from events. I know it takes time. Not everyone wants to mingle. But sometimes I go to an event, I just say, let me make one deep connection. That's all I need. I don't need to be passing out business cards to everybody. I think just one connection, and that may make the whole event worth it. And then also just make sure you model the change you want to see. And last, everyone is a superhero. It's just in all of us, and we need to just have the courage to put up the cape. That's all I have. Thank you. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for encouraging talk. Kevin, it's your turn.
Okay, I guess I'm on. And how do you follow Claudia and Tony? So I am going to attempt to, can you all hear me first of all? Okay, I'm going to attempt to share my screen and hope this works. Okay, can you guys see my screen? All right, let me change modes. All right. So what Tony did in 7 slides, I'm going to play Name That Tune and do it in 1. So just a little bit about me. Tony and I go back a way, so we can joke with each other. I even sent him a replica Ronald McDonald red shoes because he was so into shoes when I worked at McDonald's. But a little bit about myself. So I'm going clockwise. In the upper left-hand corner is my hood. I grew up in Chicago's Chinatown on the south side of Chicago. Actually, I'm going to go counterclockwise. So at the 9 o'clock, that lovely couple there is my mom and dad. Both have left us and are in a better place, but my mom is 100% Chinese. My grandma from Canton, China. My dad was kind of a mix of Irish, Scottish, a number of other things. He would call himself a mutt or a Heinz 57. And at the 6 o'clock are my siblings, and any of you who are Asian know that the seat that my mother has as the matriarch is pretty common because they actually rule the Asian families, right, Claudia? But those are my siblings and my mom sitting on the throne. And then at the 3 o'clock, my lovely wife and my 2 children. So I don't look color coordinated, Tony, because I had 1 kid attending University of Minnesota and 1 kid attending Northwestern, and we were at a Northwestern Minnesota game, and I had to sport both team colors. About 1 o'clock is what I do for fun. I am a 5th degree black belt in a Japanese martial art called Aikido. I still consider myself a student, but I do have students of my own. And just a fun fact, my first kind of teaching assignment, I had a class of children with developmental disabilities. That was a life-changing moment for me. In the middle of the clock, I worked at McDonald's for a number of years, and we were at a conference, and we had a character at the booth, and this is just an indication that Kevin will take one for the team, because inside that Grimace costume is me. And I will tell you, I got a newfound respect for costume characters because it was hot in there, and you're not allowed to talk. And Tony, this was at a NAP conference many, many years ago, and I think I actually ran into you while I was in costume. But I couldn't say anything. So that is part of what formed me, obviously my personal life, but my professional journey has been just as interesting. I have been blessed the opportunity to work with pioneers. I worked for Jane Byrne, Chicago's first female mayor. I worked for Harold Washington, Chicago's first African-American mayor. I worked for Don Thompson, McDonald's first black CEO. I spent a number of years in the restaurant business at McDonald's, and again, there's blessings at every stop. Even if you take a job and hate it, look back that you will find a blessing at every stop. And two of my blessings, a number of blessings. One, I got to meet and work with Don Thompson and the great, Patricia Harris, the godmother of diversity in the food service industry, and I got to meet Bill Imada. So that's where Bill and I first met. I've been in financial services with Discover Card, worked at the Boeing Company, most recently Zebra Technologies, and now with Hub International. So a bit about my professional journey. I've been in the HR space for all of that time. Worn the DEI hat for a lot of that time. A couple of stops I had to wear 2 hats. I was the affirmative action guy and the diversity guy. So literally I'd walk into a site and the managers would say, "So, Kevin, do you have the black hat on today or the white hat?" So, And I hated wearing both hats, to be perfectly honest with you, but you know what? It gave me a carrot and a stick. So as I said, every stop you make, there are going to be pearls of wisdom. There are going to be smart people there, whether you know it or not. They may not be smart, you may not think they're smart at the time, but there are pearls of wisdom that you will pick up at every stop. So I just wanted to share a few with you. Jane Byrne was treated horribly by 50 male aldermen. Jane Byrne came up with the concept of Taste of Chicago, and they said she was nuts. The year she lost the election, suddenly Taste of Chicago happened. Go figure. But one thing I learned, I had the opportunity to meet with her a couple of times, and she said, Kevin, there are always going to be major differences between your intent and your impact. You know, I'm in this office with a lot of great intentions, and I hope that I'm making an impact, but, you know, really be cognizant of the impact that you're having. When I was in the food service business, Ray Kroc, for those of you who saw the movie, probably wasn't the nicest man in the world, but he did have some what we call Krocisms. And one of them that was kind of our rallying cry in the DEI space was something he said, and that was, none of us is as good as all of us. Let that sink in for a minute, especially those of you who are students and looking to move on into the working world, or if you're professors and you're passing on life lessons and work lessons to students, none of us is as good as all of us. From Jerry Fernandez, who was the executive director of a group called the Multicultural Food Service and Hospitality Alliance, you know, we were wringing our hands. You know, we want to teach diversity. We want to get people to understand diversity and inclusion, and you know, all these different paths and lessons. And Jerry pulled me aside one day and he said, Kevin, keep it simple. He didn't have the additional S, but he just said, keep it simple. Diversity is about counting heads. Inclusion is about making heads count. Keep it simple. And then, because I consider myself a continuous learner, I was just in the meeting yesterday with Dr. Myra Hubbard, and we were talking about empowerment, particularly empowerment of women. But she gave a lesson that just really resonated with me. And she said, Kevin, think about this. Everyone talks about empowered, but a high percentage of us sit back and wait to be empowered. We don't grab that brass ring and be empowered. Even with companies that give you all the tools, you know, they will tell you, look, if you want to grow in this company, you know, I would joke with colleagues and say, look, if the job description says I need to learn how to stand on my head and speak Zimbabwe, and I don't get the job because I didn't learn to stand on my head and speak Zimbabwe, that's not the company's fault, right? So you've got to go for that brass ring and grab it sometimes. So again, those are just kind of the nuggets I wanted to share with you. And I'm going to stop sharing and just, as Tony has always taught me, just do it. And one of the things I used to, you know, and Tony, you know this, one of the things I used to get beat up on is, you know, back in the day, a lot of folks would talk about, hey, diversity, you got to do diversity and inclusion because it's the nice thing to do. You got to do diversity and inclusion because it's the right thing to do. And Tony and I would talk and say, you know, at the end of the day, our companies are in business to do one thing, and that's make money, right? And so one of the things like Claudia, I like to jump in with data because not everyone's driven by the nice thing to do or the right thing to do. So I like to frame up D&I as the smart thing to do for your business. And I'm just going to throw a couple figures out here. Claudia knows these well because we've been working on a project. I'm going to throw a question out to the group if anyone wants to yell out or type in an answer. What percentage of hotels in the United States do you all think are owned by Asian American Pacific Islanders?
20. 18.
Any wild guesses?
18%.
So what are we at, Claudia? About 67%? 65 to 67% of hotels and motels in the United States are owned by Asian Pacific Islanders. So as a business, one of our lines of business happens to be hospitality. Another line of business happens to be employee benefits. We are a company that teaches you to be risk averse in your insurance decisions. But are we a friend of the Asian American community? Are we a known entity in the Asian American community? So we are actually being very strategic and purposely, getting a seat at the table in that community. We're coming in and with guns blazing and joining the Asian American Hotel Owners Association and, making friends, doing the right thing, being a part of the community. I want to tell you a quick story. Tony and I both love to tell stories. When I was at Discover Financial, our LGBTQ employee resource group wanted to be in the Chicago Pride Parade. They called the parade organizers and they said, you need to pay a registration fee and you need to buy float insurance. We said, what the heck is float insurance? We went to our risk department at Discover and said, hey, they told us we had to buy risk insurance. They looked at us and said, float insurance. The risk department looked at us and said, what's float insurance? So we had to go out and find float insurance. So when I got hired by Hub, I told that story to my CEO. And I said, Mark, here's what I want that story to be going forward. A company calls the Pride Parade organizers and they say you need to pay a fee and you need to buy float insurance. And oh, by the way, we're good friends with this company called Hub International. They are a friend of our community. And if you're looking for float insurance, you go talk to one of their brokers. They'll find it for you. That's not happening today, but that's what we want to happen. And the other thing I threw at him before I ended the story was, oh, by the way, Mark, just as an aside, the gross annual revenue of LGBTQ-owned businesses in the U.S. is, fill in the blank, what do you all think? Gross annual revenue of LGBTQ-owned businesses. All right, hold on to your seats. $1.7 trillion. Does Walmart want to be the company that community does not buy from? Absolutely. Tony, I don't know if I ever shared this story with you, but I think Jerry Fernandez also taught me this one. He said, if you have franchisees, business owners, department heads that ever say, why do you want to do this diversity crap? He said, go there with a handful of dollars and say, look, let's pretend that this is one of your restaurant's cash drawers at the end of the night. One of these dollars came from a black consumer, one came from a gay consumer, one came from an Asian consumer, one came from a consumer in a wheelchair, on and on and on. And now I just have 3 questions for you. Can you tell me which of these dollars came from which consumer? Question 2, do you really care? Third question, on a nightly basis, which of these dollars do you want me to take out of your cash drawer and put into that Burger King right around the corner? Which dollar do you not want? So as I talk to students and I talk to professors, I know that there's pushback on curriculum in some schools. Why is diversity important? Why are you teaching this stuff? I will tell you that it is important to corporations. It is important for us to have leaders and future leaders who can lead and be led by people different than them. If you're going in as I worked at a company that got on this MBA kick. Man, gotta hire us some MBAs to lead operations. No experience, but they had those MBAs. It didn't go well because, again, I don't know if they were taught in the schools how to manage an intergenerational and multicultural workforce. They had all the knowledge, they had all the academic skills, they had all the book learnings, but again, they went in with not a lot of even feeling a need to know how to manage someone different from me, right? And it goes both ways. For the older managers managing the new workforce coming in. Older managers are used to this. When I tell my employees something, when I say jump, the answer is how high. This new generation, when I say jump, the answer is why. And then the next response from the boss is, well, because I said so. And then the next thing that happens is I see that employee leaving to another company. So we need to, again, I think as we prepare students to go out into today's workforce, I cannot stress enough that having knowledge and skills around the unconscious biases that drive your decisions sometimes, being aware that you have them, because we all have them, but be aware that you have them, but be smart enough to take a hold of them and go from unconscious bias to conscious inclusion. So be aware of those things. Be aware of the fact that not everyone thinks like you, right? Diversity of thought is as powerful as other forms of diversity. The wisest CEO I ever worked for said, Kevin, I have 12 direct reports. If 11 of them always agree with me, I need to fire 10 of them. I'm not that smart. So wanted to keep my part of this short and sweet. I think you've had some tremendous pearls from Tony today and also from Claudia. We'll get additional pearls, I know, from Bill. But now you know a little bit more about me. And if I leave you with anything, again, it's every experience is a learning experience. Every place that you work or go to school or group that you belong to, treat it like an ocean, and there's a pearl bed at the bottom of it, and you will find a pearl of wisdom in there, trust me. And I will leave you with that. Thank you so much.
So I'm actually not going to do my presentation.
I think Bill Imada should be on now, right?
Yeah, I'm on now. Can you hear me? I am so glad I didn't have to follow Tony Waller, and I'm really glad that he isn't here because every time he comes to an event, he's always impeccably dressed. But I haven't beat. I have eagle socks. So anyway, first of all, I know a lot of you have to go, so I want to make sure that we have a little bit of time for questions. So rather than go through a presentation, I just want to let everyone know that diversity, equity, and inclusion only works if we have belonging. And that means every single person in this room has a stake in that. And I just want to mention to all of you that Gen Z represents about 70 million people here in the United States. You are a very large cohort of people. You have the ability to change things in this country and around the world. We also have 5 generations, in some cases 6 generations, living in a household today. And that means each of us have a responsibility to work together because all the generations have lived experiences that we share. I just love Kevin Bradley talking about all the jobs he has. There's a lot of misconceptions about Gen Z. Gen Zers are always saying that they're never going to stay at a job for more than 2 years. Kevin Bradley hasn't been staying at a job for 2 years, so we can't always blame the Gen Zers in this, but maybe I could just walk through a couple of really quick slides. Because I think it's more important to hear from you. But I also wanted to mention that we are learning from every single community. I'm not sure I'm going to go through all this, but just give you a couple of examples. You already heard from Tony Waller. Tony Waller is an African-American, Black American who grew up in Puerto Rico. And one of the things that Provost Holloway just said earlier is that there should be room for everyone in this conversation about diversity, equity, and inclusion. And what is wrong with diversity, equity, and inclusion is we forget the B, that everyone belongs. And a Latino once said, and I say this every time I come to the University of Southern Mississippi, and Tony will be able to translate this, donde comen 5, comen 6. Tony, did you hear that? Probably not. Does anybody know what that means? This is exactly what Provost Holloway said. Donde comen 5, comen 6 means if you could feed 5 at your dinner table, there is always room for a 6th, a 7th, an 8th. And each of us in the world of diversity, equity, and inclusion and belonging should realize that every person, regardless of who they are in their background, should make room for a new idea, a new vision, a new way of looking at solving the world's problems. Gen Z, You also have a responsibility to fix, unfortunately, what boomers and Gen Xers have left for you. We have a divided country. We are not setting a very good example for all of you, but you have the power to change that. Remember, there are 70 million of you. And so you're already making those changes each and every day. The workplace. Gen Zers are saying that they want to have an opportunity not only to work from home, but to work in an office. Gen Zers are also saying that they want companies to embrace mental health and wellness. Gen Zers are also saying that we want a stake in being a decision maker. So to the universities and colleges and the corporations out there, invite Gen Zers and millennials to the table early, not later, because we should not hide the world's problems from you because you have a stake in fixing them. Booker T. Washington, if you haven't heard of him, he's very involved with the Tuskegee Institute. He passed, of course, a long time ago. He was a Black American patriot. He once said, if you want to lift up yourself, lift up someone else. And I think the academic folks here, Ms. Brown, Professor Shin, so many of the other academic folks here that are making a lot of time and energy for Gen Zers and younger millennials that are coming back, they're lifting you up. Gen Z, it's your opportunity to lift other people up as well. And I think that that's something that Gen Zers and younger millennials believe in, is that we want to have an impact in the world. We want to see that impact not only in the companies that we serve, but in the universities and institutions that help define who we are. So Gen Zers, keep on talking about how you want to change the world, how you want to reshape companies, but also how you want to reshape the way you consume education. A lot of Gen Zers are often accused of being on TikTok, IG, which is Instagram, Snapchat, and a few others. Absolutely. That is the new way that people are communicating. And I think corporations and organizations and universities need to understand the impact, not only of TikTok, but of IG, Instagram, Snapchat, and all the other new social media platforms that are coming out. And we're hearing from a lot of companies, not just from Walmart and from the Hub Internationals of the world, but we're also hearing from other companies and organizations that universities and colleges must think about change and embrace it quickly. You know why? While we are traveling around the country with the National Millennial and Gen Z community, an organization that the University of Southern Mississippi helped found 8 years ago, companies are now saying that it's no longer going to be necessary in the next few years for you to have a college degree. So if you really do value your college degree and the lessons that you're learning here, it's important for you to speak up and support those folks, but it's also important for the academics in the audience and throughout the university system to recognize that corporations are going to find talent wherever they can. And so when we are traveling around with the National Millennial and Gen Z community, Carly's a member of that group, by the way, companies like Google, Meta, are now saying, we are losing interest in a college degree because we don't want Gen Zers to be stuck with large loans. We don't want students to have to be responsible for a 4-year or 5-year degree. So it's very important for all of us in the DE&I space to recognize that we need to evolve and change, and we need to accept that change. I want to just leave you with a few other quotes because I want to make sure that there's room, because I want to just show you how important DE&I is to me and the belonging part. We always talk about the railroads that were built in the United States, and a lot of times they're talking about Chinese Americans building that railroad. But I also want to mention that the Chinese Americans, they built a railroad from the west to the mountain plains of the Midwest. Guess who built it from the east to the west? Irish Americans. And so it took Irish Americans and Chinese Americans a lot of time, pain and sweat equity to build that railroad so that we could cross the United States. There was once an Italian-American immigrant who inspires me each and every day. Her name was Catherine Barchetti, an Italian-American woman who inspires me. And this is also the value of diversity. She once said, make a customer, not a sale. She was trying to start an economic empire in retail, but she was blocked every step of the way in Pennsylvania. And one day she found that economic power and built this empire. She's now a realtor today, but she once again said, make the customer, not a sale. So each of the students here, this is your opportunity to not just talk about who you are in your elevator speech, but to show people that you have value not only to the companies that you're going to be working for, but to the communities that you are going to live in. Another quote that I want to mention is Peter Drucker, an educator. He once said, if you want to know or predict the future, create it. Gen Zers, please step up and help create that future. Now, I do want to say some really nice things about Walmart. Walmart is doing some really remarkable things. Regardless of whether or not you decide to go to college or finish college, there are opportunities for you in a lot of these companies. Hub International is interested in what Gen Zs say they want the most, to one day own their own companies. And so if you work in the insurance industry, you could actually own your own insurance company and run that company. If you decide that you want to take your degree and you want to become the most amazing truck driver in the world, Walmart is now paying 6 figures for a person that's willing to drive a truck. And there's also scholarships for people that work in line jobs. So please keep that in mind, that there are multiple opportunities, and the best way to find that is to believe in yourselves, but also to recognize that every single person in this room has a stake in promoting diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging. And we need not only Black American students, Latinx American students, Asian American, Indigenous students, people of the LGBTIA community, disabilities, older adults, people of mixed race, but we really, really need white students to believe in this. And I believe that if we're going to make any progress, we need to find a way to help white students and white professors understand how to be great allies to us, and for us to be great allies for you as well. And the last thing I'm going to say to each and every one of you is something that Ben Nighthorse Campbell said. He was the first Indigenous person to get elected to the Colorado congressional delegation. And he said there is but one factor for success, and that is never, ever give up. So you can see how each of these communities have influenced each other. And everything that you do each and every day has probably been impacted by someone, a Black American, or a Latin American, or a white American, or an Asian American, or Indigenous American, or even an older adult. And one last stat. Guess what the fastest growing percentage of the population is today? People who are 85 plus. Guess what the second fastest growing percentage of the population is? People 100 plus. So each of you in this room have a really good opportunity or a chance to live beyond 85. And so you're going to have a lot more time to not only earn money, give back to the university and your communities, but also find ways to help connect all communities. So thank you so much, and I want to say thanks to the speakers.
Thanks. Dr. Simpson, Director Simpson of the School of Media and Communication will moderate the Q&A session.
I'm going to stop the share. Can our panel hear us? Yeah, they can. Okay. So what questions do we have, guys? Comments? Questions?
This is the end
Yeah,
of
they
the
do
first
have.
part.
There is another
So they have to move to another.
Well, what? Question?
Yeah, I'll give you one.
Good.
Okay, so all of y'all have very diverse backgrounds and you come from very different places in life. What would you say was the best piece of advice you got when you were young? Like when you were our age, what's the best piece of advice you got?
Were you able to hear that? Okay, so the question was, what was the best piece of advice that you got when you were young about advancing your careers?
Yeah.
Yeah, about advancing your careers. in the DEI space?
I'll jump in real quickly. I learned very fast from our great mentor that said, doing DEI work, you are never going to make everyone 100% happy. And just, don't take it, and the other piece was don't take it personally.